10 years ago at one of the autograph shows, Richard, who used to be in my painting class group every Saturday, he said, Rob, you got to get Russ on your show. And so he introduced us, and you were very kind, but you said, I can't talk to you, Rob. I'm writing my book.
Oh.
You'll have to buy my book. Well, I did buy your book, and here it is right here, Dancing on the Edge. And it's a great book, too. And thank you, Richard Hurd, for introducing us, and Russ, thank you for writing this book.
And buy the book, it's great.
Yeah, buy this book. Hi, welcome to A Word on Westerns. It's Rob Word, and my guest today is Russ Tamblyn, and his career is so fascinating for me. He worked with some of the giants. That big MGM movie that had been an Oscar winner in 1931, CIMARRON, the first Western ever to win Best Picture.
Richard Dix.
And he's a little stiff in it, Richard Dix is, but the movie itself has great moments in it. The one you're in, directed by Anthony Mann, the first 2/3 of it is fantastic. Somehow it lost its way in the end, but you were a bad kid, a gunfighting kid.
He's the Cimarron Kid.
Yeah, he was great, though. He was fast on the draw in real life, too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he actually turned me on to a guy that makes fast gun holsters. The whole part of it, it's a stiff holster, so it's really easy to pull a gun out. And I learned how to do it, and I used to do it with Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh, he was fast.
He was very fast.
Yeah.
He was so fast that he could actually do a thing where he would, where you could challenge him, and and we'd have guns with blanks, and he could actually pull his gun out and shoot it before you could even, before you could do anything.
I'm glad that you were into that too and got fast, because Glenn, you were also in a movie with him called The Fastest Gun Alive, which pretty much is him.
Right.
You had a musical number in that film.
Yeah, and Glenn tried to get it cut out of the movie. He went to the head of the studio. They told me, the head told me that Glenn tried to get the number cut out of the movie. In fact, it was cut out. It was cut out. The first sneak preview they had in the theater, there was no dance number in it. And you know what? During those previews, you fill out a thing at the end, out in the lobby, and fill out a thing. But what happened was that when they cut the number out and they showed it, they didn't cut out the
credit?
The credit at the end where it said Russ Tamblyn's dance number, choreographed by Alex Romero. So that was pretty funny, and almost like 90% of all the cards said, "Where was Russ Tamblyn's dance number?" So they put it back in.
Blame it on Glenn again.
And I worked with him again after that, and I said, "You tried to get my number cut out of the movie." He says, "Russ, it was nothing personal. It was just that this was a simple little black and white Western." And then suddenly he said, "You come on and start dancing like Gene Kelly,
on the shovels.
And dance on shovels." And he said, "I thought it was a great number, but it was too much." He says, "I love dancers. I was married to
Eleanor Powell.
Yeah. So that was kind of wild. And he was a good friend of mine.
He was a good man. And I loved watching his movies. In The Fastest Gun Alive, I just thought it was weird that here's Glenn, he's a rugged hero type guy, and the guy who wants to outdraw him is Broderick Crawford.
Yeah. No,
Somebody wake up Rod. Come on, he's got a scene here.
Yeah, no, that's very true. When you look at him and you thought, how the hell could he be a fast gun drawer?
So the whole point of the movie is kind of lost on me, and the highlight was the shovel dance.
Yeah.
How did you do the bit with the shovels? Did you come up with that by yourself?
Well, I came up with Alex Romero, and I always liked working with him as a choreographer because we would work together. He never said doing this and that, and we sort of worked out numbers together. I did the dance number. If you watched it again, you could run it and see it, and you'll see that there was a cut where I go over and I jump up on the shovels, and then there's a cut. I had to make me a special pair of shovels that had a piece of steel on the blade, and then they bolted my boots onto the shovels. So I would put them on that way with the shovel, hold it. Otherwise, I could never have done it because you walk on it a little bit, but I couldn't. The problem is you had to pull it up with your hand.
Well, nobody notices the trick in the movie.
And then right near the end of the dance number of dancing with the shovels, I go bump, 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 and then there's another cut. And then I got on the loose shovels and I dropped the handle down. But everybody said, God, that was amazing that you could do that. I tried to...
kids are trying that at home and stuff.
You can't do it. It's too hard to keep it on the bottom of your foot.
Let's get back to the other Glenn Ford film again, Cimarron, because Anthony Mann, who had just come off of a string of really successful James Stewart westerns that are classics like The Naked Spur and Bend to the River and all these wonderful things, and he got fired from that film. What happened?
I don't know about it, but
that land rush sequence too, which was amazing, so well choreographed and exciting. And Glenn, not only was he fast with a gun, he's a good horseman too.
Well, and that he loved that. He told me one time that if he could only make one genre of movies, it would be westerns. He loved doing westerns.
Well, there's something about it, and on that one in particular, because they were out on location. But also, like the traditional studio films, MGM especially, there were so many scenes that were shot on a soundstage too.
All the ones that I did on location, there were also studio shots.
Well, that's the way the studios were. They had a whole crew of people, of designers and artisans that they needed to keep employed at the time. So they wanted it to be in their control.
I was under contract at MGM, and West Side Story was made United Artists. I tested for the part of Tony, and this MGM let me go and test, and I tested for that part, and I tested with several actresses that were in contention to do to play Maria, and that was the part that I really wanted to do, was the part of Tony.
You'd had seen it on Broadway, the play.
Yeah, I'd seen it on Broadway, and I was in the Army at that time, and so I bought the album in New York, and I came back to Fort Sill in Oklahoma, and that was it. I memorized Tony's songs in it, and that's what I really wanted to do. And I had the same agent, Phil Gersh, the same agent as Bob Wise. So I knew I had an in calling Phil and ask him how is it going? How am I doing? He said, well, you're still in contention, but he said it's just between you and another actor. So I said, well, let me know. And then he called me one night and said, I'm sorry, Russ, but they gave the part to an actor named Richard Beamer, and but they offered you the part of Riff. And I said, Riff? No, I said, he's like this really, really hardcore dancer, a ballet dancer. I mean, it was really and I said, I don't, and he said, so do you want to do it or not? And I said, yes. Very quickly.
Like bam, yes.
And so that's what I did. And also, on that note, I came in to see, to meet Jerry Robbins and Bob Wise. I came in, met them, and the first thing that Jerome Robbins said to me was, he says, well, now I got to tell you, he says, I've seen a bunch of your musicals and stuff, and you do a lot of acrobatics all the time, but there'll be no acrobatics in this because Riff is not an acrobat. You know, it has to be straight dancing. So I said, okay, I'll do my best. And during the filming of it, Jerry got fired because he was taking too long to get shots, and we were in New York way too long. And so he got fired, and one of the dancers in it, Tony Bordente, who was also married to Chita Rivera at one time, and he took over the choreography. He says, well, now that Jerry's gone, let's put some tumbling back in. So that's when I did like a round-off backflip with a full twist. And
yeah, the thing on the high bar that you do, you're just sitting up there doing a scene. Those are the things that people remember.
Yeah, but it was okay because then I found out later, Tony Mordente told me, they said, when I showed Jerry what you had done, what I had you doing it and everything, he said, oh, that's great. My wife Bonnie and I went to see a show in Pantages Theater here, which was called Jerome Robbins Broadway. And they did one of the numbers from West Side Story, and the kid who was playing Riff did a flip in it, you know, like that. And I said, ha. And I knew Jerry had choreographed it, so afterwards I couldn't wait to get back stage and ask him how he got away with doing a flip. And he said, oh, that was part of the audition. You had to be able to tumble.
Really?
So
wow.
I pat myself
Yeah,
on the
you
back.
bet. Because it was co-directed, Robert Wise and Jerry. When Jerry got fired, did Wise jump in to help more with the musical numbers? Or
They were pretty well all choreographed in a way, but then they changed. Then they changed a lot, and I guess they had a deal when Jerry signed on as co-director, that Jerry was going to handle all the musical numbers, and then Bob Wise was going to handle the drama, which worked out pretty well for a while. Except, you know, Jerry just went on too long.
did the pace change once he left? Did it increase, go faster?
Well, the set closed down. We came back from New York, and then my agent Phil Gersh said, "Guess what?" He says that they're thinking of closing the down, of not finishing the film because they're running out of money. We waited. It was like maybe a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, that everything shut down, and then we started in again without Jerry. But then I was the only one that knew because I was with Phil Gersh, and he told me, he says, yeah, they fired him.
Boy, it's a good thing they came up with the rest of that money because the film is a classic. It's great. Best film of the year, too.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
But they were running out of money.
Wow. I'm going to mention my friend Richard Hurd, who's no longer with us. 10 years ago, at one of the autograph shows, Richard, who used to be in my painting class group every Saturday, he said, Rob, you got to get Russ on your show. And so he introduced us, and you were very kind, but you said, I can't talk to you, Rob. I'm writing my book. You'll have to buy my book. Well, I did buy your book, and here it is right here, Dancing on the Edge. And it's a great book, too. And thank you, Richard Hurd, for introducing us, and Russ, thank you for writing this book.
And buy the book, it's great.
Yeah, buy this book. So you worked with Glenn again, though, in an episode
I worked with him
Cades County.
Three times.
Yeah, another Western, a modern
More than that, yeah. Cades County,
And then,
Fastest Gun Alive,
and-
and Don't Go Near the Water.
Because you did several films with him. Were you off camera? Did you hang out with him at all?
Yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah, we were friends. He used to come to my beach house all the time, and he was a great guy. I really liked him. He was a good good friend.
He did some wonderful films too, and there's something about his presence on camera that's just, you just like him.
Yeah.
You did a film with my son's godfather, Sidney Poitier.
Oh, Sidney, yeah.
And Sidney I used to tease him about the wig he wore in that film, and he laughed. He had such a great laugh too. And
he was a tremendous guy.
he was a prince of a man.
He was really a prince of a man. I can tell you a story about him. We were shooting it in Yugoslavia. The day that he came on the set, they were going to shoot
Moors.
Moors, yeah, with all of his Moors, and he looked around. And he says, "Where's my black men?" And they said, "Oh, we couldn't find any here in Yugoslavia." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Go to Africa. I think they have a few there, and bring them back here. Meanwhile, I'll be back in my hotel room."
That sounds like him.
He left this set, and I loved him.
Oh, wow.
At that moment when he did that, and
He was so special, you know.
very special.
Yeah.
And we just had a lot of good times together. And
Didn't you sleep out under the stars one night?
yeah, how did you know that?
Well, you know, this book. I read this wonderful book.
Oh,
You know, and it's in this book.
gee, who wrote that? It must have
let
been a
me
good
see.
artist.
Oh my gosh. You
good
wrote this
writer.
book. Right here. This is the one.
Yeah, we did. He had a girlfriend at that time, an actress. Sidney did.
Diane Carroll, I
Diane
believe.
Carroll, that's it. Yeah, I couldn't remember that.
Well, I just was guessing.
But we slept out under the stars, and
How special.
it was terrific. And then when we went back to London together, and we went back to do some shots in London, and we both stayed at the same hotel. I remember it was really nice. So, and we wanted to really celebrate because Yugoslavia was so horrible. You know, the food was terrible, and we were there for months. So we went out to dinner one night. We went to this restaurant called the White Elephant, which was one of the most famous, really expensive restaurants in London. And we went there, and we thought, let's really celebrate. So we ordered just everything, just Dom Perignon with champagne and pheasant under glass, and it was just a massive amount of food that we ordered, and we'd eat a little bit and then leave the rest, and so at the end of the meal, Sidney said, "Okay, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for this," and I said, "No. Look, I got." And I had money in every pocket because we both had per diems.
And there was no place to spend it in
No place to
Yugoslavia.
spend it in Yugoslavia. So that was pretty funny. We were arguing about who was going to pick up the check, and the maitre d' came over to our table and said, "We're so honored to have you two here. We're picking up the whole check." And then we looked at each other and thought, wouldn't you know it, you know? When you got the money and you're ready to spend it, you can't even do that.
Well, I'd like to talk about a legendary director that's not Robert Wise. It's not Anthony Mann. It's not anybody but our friend Al Adamson, the director of Satan's Sadist, the Dracula versus Frankenstein, Blazing Stewardesses. Now, why weren't you in Blazing Stewardesses with Al?
I don't know. I wish I'd have never been in any of his movies, to tell you the truth. Pretty weird that he was, all these movies he made where it's like the blood of something, and the blood of something else. And
Yes, the blood of the mummy's tomb. Or
yes, but it had blood in the title. And oddly enough, the guy who worked on his property in Palm Springs, I guess, he had a little house there, killed him and buried him in the cement.
And it took a while to find him. He was like he was missing.
Yeah.
So what a strange career. And his father was called Denver Dixon, and made westerns in the 30s.
Oh, yeah.
And then became like an unknown character actor. But he was the B-Western Ed D. Wood of directors in the films that he made. I'll send you one of those, just so you know the lineage there with Al and his dad. I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that I've got to read your book because there's so many stories in there. What a life. We didn't even get to talk about your pal Neil Young, and I've got all of his albums and CDs, seen him in concert 3 or 4 times. Always a great show.
We lived next door to each other in Topanga.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we became friends. We went all over the United States, and also we did a tour in Japan and Australia, and so I've been friends of his for a long time. And I did a video with him where I played his feet in the video. And
What were you smoking at that time?
well, you better believe we were smoking a lot of pot. Those were the days. But they would do a shot of him doing this, like from the waist up, and then they would cut, and it would be his legs doing dance steps, and that was me.
No.
So that's how I ended up doing that.
And your friend Dean Stockwell was involved with that film and a lot of your adventures together too, and you met him in your very first film, The Boy with the Green Hair.
Yeah, we became friends at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a story about him that was pretty wild. We were living together in Laurel Canyon, and one day we were going to the market. And so we drove down, and Dean was driving, and we pulled up to a stoplight, and we stopped, and I was in the passenger seat up front, sitting next to him, and I looked over to my right, and there was a teenager whose hair was green. He had dyed his hair green, and I nudged Dean, and I said, "Dean, look, do you believe that?" And so we were both staring over there, and the guy caught us staring, the kid, and he rolled the window down, and he said, "What's the matter? You've never seen anybody with green hair before?" And boy, I had this hunch that I wanted to say, not only did we see green hair, but this was the boy with green hair. He's the first one that ever had green hair. But it would have been just a long conversation.
Well, let me talk about one more Western that you did, and this is an interesting concept because you played a man with fantasies about learning to fly in Life and Times of Grizzly Adams, a Dan Haggerty and Denver Pyle show, and the twist at the end is that you're Wilbur and Orville Wright's father.
Oh, really?
You'd have to watch that again. But I just thought, how great that is that? That's a cool
I didn't
story.
even know that.
Yeah. Well, they had you like learning to fly or something.
Yeah, the actor who played Grizzly Adams was actually, I'd worked with him before. I did a Tarzan, and he was the animal trainer in South America. So I remembered him doing that.
Yeah, no, he was the animal handler and so many things before
that's
that.
right.
Yeah. So what was Ron Ely like in that Tarzan?
He was great. He was a good Tarzan, I thought, and got along great with him. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun shooting in South America. I remember at one point I saw a snake. It's huge. It must have been a boa constrictor that just kept going and going on that was very exciting.
I'll bet. Well, it's been exciting having you here with us today, Russ.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the interview.
Thanks for joining us today, too. Russ, thank you, pal.
You're welcome. Thank you.